15 of the world's top doctors stood frozen in the operating room, their skills useless against the billionaire's mysterious condition. Machines beeped, nurses rushed, but hope seemed to vanish with each second. Everyone whispered the same chilling truth. There was nothing left to do. Yet in the chaos, a quiet figure stepped forward. He wasn't a surgeon, not even a medical student. He was just the black janitor's son, carrying nothing but his sharp mind and a burning determination. No one believed he could make a difference until he noticed something all those experts had missed. The story begins inside one of the most prestigious hospitals in the country, a place where marble floors gleamed and walls carried the names of wealthy donors. Among them was Victor Harlow, a powerful billionaire known for his influence and wealth. His sudden collapse at a corporate event sent shockwaves through the city. Within minutes, he was rushed into the emergency wing, where the hospital's best doctors assembled, determined to save the man whose fortune had funded half their research. But amid the chaos, another figure worked quietly in the background. His name was Samuel Reed, a black janitor who had been cleaning those very halls for decades. While most saw him as invisible, Samuel carried a secret pride. His son, David, a brilliant teenager with a mind far beyond his years. David had grown up in those same hospital corridors, studying medical textbooks left in waiting rooms, sneaking glimpses at anatomy charts while his father mopped the floors. On the day the billionaire was wheeled in, David happened to be visiting his father. He lingered near the operating wing, his sharp eyes watching the frantic rush of surgeons and nurses. 15 doctors, men and women with international acclaim, worked furiously, yet frustration filled the air. Machines beeped louder, alarms blared, and the mood grew heavier by the second. Nobody noticed David at first. To them, he was just the janitor's boy, standing too close to where he didn't belong. But David noticed something they didn't. A detail so small, so easily overlooked, yet so critical, it could mean the difference between life and death. And though he was only a child, he felt an undeniable pull to speak up. The room grew hotter with tension. Monitors screamed warnings as Victor Harlow's condition worsened. The doctors spoke in rushed tones, adjusting wires and calling out drug doses, but nothing seemed to work. They had run every test, used every tool, yet the billionaire's life was slipping through their hands. Nurses whispered about preparing for the worst. Some of the staff even lowered their voices, already bracing themselves for the moment they would have to announce defeat. Through the small glass window, David pressed his palms against the cold surface, watching intently. His mind wasn't clouded by panic, it was sharp, calculating, piecing together every movement inside. He remembered things he had read in medical journals, things most kids his age wouldn't even understand. Something about the billionaire's breathing, the faint bluish tint of his lips, and the way the machines kept glitching caught his attention. But when David tried to edge closer, a nurse noticed him and frowned. "What are you doing here?" she asked sharply, motioning for him to step back. "This isn't for you. Go wait outside." It was always the same. To them, he was just a janitor's son, someone who didn't belong in a place where millionaires and top doctors decided fates. David lowered his head, pretending to obey, but he didn't leave. Instead, he lingered in the hallway, his eyes fixed on the room. Inside, frustration mounted. One of the senior doctors slammed a chart on the table, his voice breaking. "We're out of options." Another shook her head, whispering, "How is this possible? 15 of us and none of us can see what's wrong." David's heart raced. He did see it. He recognized the signs from an article he once studied. A rare reaction linked not to the heart, not to the brain, but to a subtle allergy hidden in medication. It wasn't obvious, and it certainly wasn't in the standard protocol, but the clue was there in plain sight, and every second mattered. He wanted to shout it out, but fear held him back. Who would listen to him? What if he was wrong? A janitor's son challenging 15 of the greatest doctors in the world, people who had spent decades training. He could already hear the laughter, the dismissive tones, the cutting words telling him to know his place. Then he thought of his father. Samuel had always told him, "Don't let anyone tell you your worth, son. Truth doesn't care about titles. If you see something others don't, speak it." Those words gave him strength. As alarms blared louder, David made his choice. He stepped forward, pushing the door open. Gasps filled the room. Nurses tried to stop him. Doctors shouted for security, but David's voice rose above the noise. Calm, steady, and certain, he pointed to the chart. Everyone froze. The boy who wasn't supposed to matter had just thrown himself into the middle of the storm, and for the first time, someone dared to suggest the impossible, that 15 doctors had missed the truth and only the janitor's son had seen it. The room erupted in chaos the moment David spoke. Doctors barked orders for security to remove him, but his words lingered in the air like a lightning strike. "Check the medication. He's allergic," he had said. The accusation felt impossible, insulting even, yet there was something in the boy's steady eyes that stopped Samuel, his father, from pulling him back. For a fleeting moment, silence fell. One of the younger doctors, desperate for answers, scanned the billionaire's chart and froze. Her face went pale. "Wait, he's right," she pointed to the notes. Buried in the billionaire's medical history was a subtle warning almost everyone had overlooked. The drug they had just administered was triggering a violent reaction. Gasps filled the operating room. In an instant, the narrative shifted. The boy who was dismissed as invisible had seen what 15 brilliant minds had missed. Orders flew, antidotes were prepared, machines recalibrated, and within moments the monitors began to stabilize. The beeping softened, the frantic shouts turned to careful commands, and color started returning to Victor Harlow's face. The billionaire's life hung by a thread, but it was being pulled back, not by the prestige of his fortune, not by the knowledge of world-renowned doctors, but by the sharp insight of a janitor's son. David stood still, his heart pounding, not out of fear now, but from the weight of the moment. The same people who minutes earlier had dismissed him as a nuisance now looked at him with disbelief, even awe. Whispers spread among the nurses. How did he see that? How could a boy know this? Victor Harlow gasped a weak breath as his eyes fluttered open. Relief flooded the room, but under that relief was something more profound. A dawning realization that brilliance can come from the most unexpected places. And prejudice had almost cost a man his life. And in that moment, everyone knew the janitor's son had just changed everything. The hospital shifted from chaos to stillness. Nurses wiped their brows. Doctors lowered their instruments, and the billionaire lay stabilized on the bed. Relief washed over the room, but for many, relief was not enough. They exchanged uneasy glances, their minds replaying what had just happened. 15 celebrated doctors, specialists trained to spot the rarest of conditions, had missed the truth, and the one who saw it was the boy they had nearly thrown out of the room. David stood quietly beside his father, his chest rising and falling with the adrenaline that still coursed through him. He wasn't seeking praise, but he couldn't ignore the shift in how people looked at him now. Moments earlier, their eyes were filled with irritation, even disdain. Now those same eyes carried disbelief, humility, and something else, respect. Samuel placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder, his own eyes glistening. For years he had worked unnoticed, scrubbing floors while people walked past without so much as a nod. He had grown used to being invisible. But today his son had forced the world to see them. Victor Harlow's personal physician approached Samuel and David slowly, his face heavy with shame. He cleared his throat, then said the words no one expected. "If it weren't for your son, we would have lost him. We owe him a debt that can't be repaid." The acknowledgement echoed through the sterile corridors. For the first time, the hospital's hierarchy cracked, and truth seeped in. Brilliance has no uniform, genius has no title, and dignity cannot be defined by the color of one's skin or the weight of one's paycheck. When Victor Harlow fully regained consciousness days later, he too was told the story. The billionaire, a man who once believed money could solve anything, found himself humbled by the wisdom of a boy who had nothing but determination and knowledge. He requested to meet David personally, not to thank him as a billionaire thanking a janitor's son, but as a man thanking another who had saved his life. David's act of courage did more than save a life that day. It shattered assumptions, humbled arrogance, and reminded everyone in that hospital that greatness is often hidden in the most overlooked places. And so, the story of a black janitor's son who saw what 15 doctors could not became more than just a miracle in one hospital. It became a symbol, a lesson whispered in corridors and retold in classrooms, that prejudice blinds, but truth reveals. So ask yourself, how many geniuses, how many heroes, go unseen every day because of the boxes we put them in? And when the moment comes, will we have the courage to see them?